Hi, my name is Barb Nangle. I'm the founder of Higher Power Coaching and Consulting. I want to welcome you to my podcast, Fragmented to Whole, Life Lessons from 12-Step Recovery. This is episode 25, Act As If. When I came into recovery and heard people using the phrase act as if, I really didn't understand the depth of the meaning behind that phrase until I started to put it into action. And that's the key word right there, action. I've been told repeatedly by people who have a lot more program time than me, especially my first sponsor, action, action, action. This is a program of action. Thinking isn't one of the steps, hoping isn't one of the steps, wishing isn't one of the steps, and controlling isn't one of the steps. But there's action built into every single one of the steps. I remember saying to her, wait, how does made a decision to turn my will and my life over to the care of God from step 3 qualify as an action? And she said that it's really to do a decision. She also said to me all the time, you can't think your way into right acting, but you can act your way into right thinking. And it doesn't matter what you think, it doesn't matter what you believe, it only matters what you do. Before I go any further, I'd like to clarify that acting as if is not the same as pretending. Act as if is based on actions towards a better reality that you're trying to create. Pretending is kind of a way of hiding, and there's no intention to change the situation. It's often actually done to keep things the way they are. I pretended a lot in my life before recovery. I pretended I knew what was going on around me and my family. I pretended I knew things I didn't know. And because of that pretending, I was afraid that I would be found out and people would know. In other words, there was an element of shame in the pretending, that I didn't know what was going on or I didn't know what something meant. For those who are in recovery like me, pretending also often had an element of collusion with it. That is, I was colluding with others and pretending that didn't happen or everything is fine when clearly it wasn't. There was a lot of pretending in my family, like, let's pretend that dad didn't try to strangle me last night as if it didn't happen, or let's pretend everybody doesn't know that dad has been cheating on mom for years. Acting as if is very intentional, and the intention is change for the better. So I hope that makes the distinction between pretending and acting as if clear. One of the most powerful ways I've seen the act as if principle at work is in regard to people who come into recovery and do not believe in God and don't have any kind of a higher power. If you act as if you have a higher power, you will see the results of having a higher power in your life. I've seen it over and over and over again. In other words, what are the behaviors people who have a higher power are doing, and then do those behaviors? Some examples are they pray or they write letters to God. It doesn't matter whether you believe it will help or not. Just pray or write letters to God. Just do the behaviors of people that believe in God, like hand over whatever anxiety or fear you have, or ask for guidance. Then look for the evidence that there is actually a higher power after you've done the behaviors. What I've heard numerous times from people in recovery are amazing stories where they acted as if a higher power existed and then some complete miracle happens. Go figure. Because I came into recovery already having a higher power who I choose to call God, that was not something I needed to do in terms of acting as if. Granted, I didn't use my higher power in the way that I've learned to do in recovery, but hearing other people who didn't even have a higher power be taught how to use their higher power was really helpful to me. Because now I use my higher power all the time. I ask for my higher power's guidance all the time. I hand things over like worry and planning. And I ask my higher power to use me. One way, besides with the higher power, that the phrase act as if that was really helpful to me was something I learned from a friend in recovery who had a long-term relationship with someone that had been built on codependence. And the issue that ignited her codependent tendencies was he had a bunch of health concerns, and she was constantly nagging him like, did you take your medication? Don't put salt on that. Did you get your exercise? Blah, 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 blah. So they broke up, and when she was in recovery, they got back together, by which time she had come to understand that all that stuff she was doing was controlling behavior. She was trying to get him to do what she wanted him to do. But because she'd come to understand the wisdom to know the difference between what she can and cannot control, that is, in this situation, other people, she stopped nagging him about his health concerns. She stopped discussing his health with him and let him take care of himself. Then one day she said to me, it's funny. I've stopped saying things to him about his health, even though I wanted to. And now I'm not even thinking about it. And I was like, oh my God, you acted your way into right thinking. And she was like, holy shit, I didn't even realize that was what that meant. She really didn't even understand what that meant when people said you act your way into right thinking. You don't think your way into right acting. And she really got it from that situation. And then I also really got it. Back to, it doesn't matter what I think. It doesn't matter what I believe. It matters what I do. If I want to stay clean, sober, and abstinent, it doesn't matter if my mind is telling me you can have just one, or whether I believe I will never be able to give up this addiction. Those things really don't matter. What matters is what I do. The actions I take when tempted are what matter, because I may always have those kinds of thoughts. It could happen, but what I do about them is what really matters. So what I do is pick up the phone and call or text someone, leave the situation, reach for program literature, pray for the compulsion to be lifted. Whatever action I need to take so that I don't engage in my addictive behaviors. Action, action, action. It also matters how I act towards other people. If I'm trying to get over my codependent tendency, it doesn't matter whether I think this person is fucking useless. What are they going to do without me if I don't rescue them and try to fix them? I can think those kind of things all I want. What I need to do is stop the codependent behavior. Then I at least give them the opportunity to work on themselves. Whether they do or not is none of my business, but they don't even have the opportunity to do so if I'm in there trying to fix things for them or rescue them. At minimum, I'm minding my own business, which is what I'm trying to do because I'm trying to stop acting codependently. So it doesn't matter what I think about them, and it doesn't matter what I believe about them and whether they're capable of taking care of themselves or not. It really just matters what I do. And act as if is the saying that helps me to do that. If you're really interested in learning more in depth about this concept, I recommend you read a book called Constructive Living by David Reynolds. I'll mention the title again towards the end. It was given to me by a friend in recovery who, by the way, is one of my most important 12-step teachers. So this dude knows what he's talking about. I had the book sitting in my bathroom for at least a couple of years before I read it and was blown away when I read it. Reynolds does an excellent job in only about 100 pages of really explaining in detail how to act as if and why it works. He also has some exercises in the back of the book that help you practice acting as if. What I'll share now are some of the insights I found particularly helpful from the book. Reynolds says, our chances of success improve as we behave responsibly, but sometimes we will fail anyway. And he says, that's all right. Failure presents something else for us to do, just as success does. It's in the responding to every moment's needs, regardless of success or failure, that we mature. Know the words behave and respond. Those are action words. He goes on to say, self-development doesn't mean making life easy. It means making effort towards success even while we're failing. I have a bumper sticker that says, fail till you succeed. And I think I've mentioned on this podcast before, one of my friends texted me and said, oh, I love that bumper sticker. And I said, yeah, it's basically the eternal formula for success. Fail until you succeed. So if you fall off the wagon, get back up and into action. As the proverb goes, fall down 7 times, get up 8. It doesn't say fall down 0 times. Reynolds goes on to say that constructive living is working on what's out there that needs doing, but it is also working on building a certain kind of me, the kind of me who is a doer, one who acts as if success is just around the corner. Some other things he says are, if you become discouraged, simply note that you are discouraged. And remember that being discouraged is a feeling. That's interesting. I'm discouraged. If you do that, you've already given yourself some distance from your discouragement. You're looking at the discouragement as an observer, not as if it is you. Next, resolve to accept that feeling as it is and not waste time struggling with it directly. It's all right, though unpleasant, to be discouraged. Next, try to figure out what's causing the feeling and what the feeling is signaling you to do about your present reality, because feelings are signals. In other words, there may be something that needs doing in your world that you can do. And one result of the doing might be the discouragement will go away. However, don't take action in order to get rid of the discouragement. Take action to change what needs changing. Perhaps to change the thing that is discouraging you. Take action to respond to your situation. The sooner your attention shifts to responsible behavior, the sooner your feelings will fade. Remember to begin by recognizing feelings, pleasant or unpleasant. Don't begin by ignoring or denying them. See whether they have a message for you about some action you need to take. Then behave responsibly. If the feeling remains, is there something else you need to do? If not, go on about your life without excessive interest in the feeling. There is something much bigger at stake here than the momentary discomfort of regret or discouragement. You are constructing a finer, deeper, stronger you. Act as if you already are the finer, deeper, stronger you. What would such a person do? Reynolds also gives the example of a shy person wasting their attention on wishing they weren't shy, wishing they weren't the way they are. Now, this could be the case for anyone with any quality about themselves that they don't like. Some shy people go beyond wishing they were different to try to make themselves not shy. He says there's a more reliable way to overcome the chains of shyness. And that is to just be shy. If you were uncomfortable in a social situation because you're shy, just be uncomfortable. That's reality. Never deny reality. To pretend, to ignore, to wish never changes anything. While accepting the reality of your shyness, go on doing what you need to do in your life. That means, in spite of quivering knees and pounding heart, call, tell, make, do. Those are all actions. Go on about living even though you are shy. Paradoxically, the more you do these things, the less shy you will feel. You will be turning more and more attention away from yourself and your own problems towards the reality out there. Reynolds uses a great metaphor having to do with a pressure cooker on a burner. He says, if you've got all kinds of pressures and stresses over time and end up with irritable bowel syndrome, high blood pressure, ulcers, sleep problems, skin problems, etc., the cause of these terrible consequences is not the environmental stressors, and it is not the feelings they produce. It is your long-term lack of success in acting to change the situation. When you don't do anything to change what is happening, when you just sit in the pressure cooker with a burner turned up high, when you don't build or learn or move or oppose or educate or otherwise respond to your circumstance, you are in for trouble. Unless, of course, fate steps in and turns the burner down for you, which is probably not going to happen. Though many of us delude ourselves into thinking it will. And by the way, that was definitely me before recovery. Do something to change things. To lose oneself in the doing of what needs to be done, that is the way to a satisfying existence. People who moan endlessly about what is happening to them get lost in their misery and self-centered despair. They focus almost exclusively on their own suffering, and thus they feel it more acutely. They actually hurt more subjectively than someone else with the same affliction who lives constructively. If living in misery resonates with you, you might want to listen to my podcast number 3, which is on victim mentality. I had absolutely no idea that I had victim mentality until I came into recovery. I could spot it a mile away in someone else, mind you, but I couldn't see it in myself. And if you think that this might possibly be you, I talk about my journey of coming to see that and what I did about it in that episode. The last thing I will leave you with is a little bit more recommendations from David Reynolds in this book, Constructive Living. He says, use phrases like to do love, to do patience, to do assertiveness, to do courage. To be courageous or to feel courage is not the same as to do courage. To be loving or to feel love is not the same as to do love. Acceptance and attention are actions that demonstrate love. We're used to giving attention to those we love and accepting them for who they are. We can take those very same actions of acceptance and attention towards ourselves as well. So go out there and do love, my friends. Act as one who is loving, especially towards yourself. See where that gets you. That's it for today. If you like what you've heard here, then you just might be interested in private coaching with me. If that sounds like you, head on over to my website, which is higherpowercoachingandconsulting.com, and click on the contact menu. I'd be happy to schedule a consultation with you to help you make lasting changes in your life, like I've made deep, lasting changes in my life. My ideal client is someone who is ripe for change, but I'll coach anyone who wants to be happy, joyous, and free. So if that's you, shoot me an email. I'd love to hear from you. Thanks for listening. Be sure to like and subscribe so you can be sure to get future episodes of my podcast. Thanks again.